Happy Monday, everybody, and welcome back to the RPM Garage Dallas YouTube channel. Since it is Monday, of course, that means it's time for another review. And as you may or may not remember from last week, we had a Lamborghini Huracan LP610-4. Now, if you haven't seen that video yet, click the link that's going to pop up somewhere above me at some point in the next couple seconds and go check it out because it was one of my favorite videos ever to shoot. Today, we have something very similar except in every single way. This is a Lamborghini of sorts. Now, if you're familiar with performance SUVs, they've become an extremely popular car on the automotive market lately, and many manufacturers are making some performance SUV of some kind. This, however, is the first. It is a 1992 GMC Typhoon, and it is one of the coolest SUVs ever to hit the market. Today, I'm going to explain exactly why it is one of the coolest SUVs you'll ever see, one of the rarest SUVs you'll ever find, and why you should come to RPM Garage Dallas today to check it out, test drive it, and maybe even purchase it. This segment in the video is usually dedicated to just the exterior of the car, but this car has a lot of history, so I obviously want to talk a little bit about that before we talk about the exterior. So if you're familiar with the GMC Cyclone and the GMC Typhoon, you'll know that this is an extremely rare car in just about every way. However, if you're not familiar, then let me explain it for you in quantitative numbers. This car had an extremely limited production run. It was only produced from 1991 to 1993, about 2 years. And in that 2 years, GMC produced a collective total of 4,600 to 4,700 of these fantastic machines, which is ridiculously low for just about any automotive manufacturer, but especially low for a manufacturer of GMC's size and caliber. As a result, these are true collector's items, and it's definitely worth taking a picture of one if you happen to come across one on the road. Now, to find one in this condition is even rarer. These cars were often not kept in mint condition. I mean, especially if you had one of the first performance trucks or the first performance SUVs, as the GMC Cyclone and GMC Typhoon are, then you likely would have driven it a lot. And it's safe to say that a lot of the first examples of it and early examples of these cars have not seen very good ownership. However, this has been treated fantastically well. The paint is in fantastic condition, the body is in excellent condition, and it only has 85,000 miles, making it a truly special machine indeed. However, it's time to talk about the body. So I've mentioned the GMC Cyclone a lot, and you may be familiar with it, but if you're not, it is GMC's first performance truck, and it was the predecessor / brother to this fantastic machine right here. And in fact, they share a lot of the same features. Most of the body panels forward of the midsection of the car are identical in every single way. Both trucks were also built on the GMC Jimmy platform, and of course, they do share the same engine as well, and of course the same suspension. As a result, these low-slung performance SUVs and trucks are exceedingly rare and of course very fun to look at. And of course, when you compare them side by side, there are very few differences. Aside from, of course, the shell in the back and the extra row of seats. Now, if you were to slap a row of seats in the back / bed of a GMC Cyclone and toss a shell on it, you more or less would end up with this very car. Now, obviously, I'd rather, and you'd rather, have an actual SUV rather than a converted truck, but if you were so desperate to have a Typhoon, you could just as easily buy a Cyclone and convert it to one of these. Regarding this car specifically though, it has awesome paint. Now, I truly love this green color, and in the takes that I've filmed before this, I've kind of gotten a little bit out of hand describing how much I love the paint color, so I'm going to keep it a little more reserved. This green is truly, truly magnificent on this car, and I find it very, very reminiscent of a deep forest green that you might see in perhaps the European countryside. Now, honestly, I truly, truly love this color on this car, although it is not the iconic black that this GMC truck is known for. That being said, I like this color a lot better, and I think you will too. Another thing you might notice are these awesome GMC 16-inch alloy wheels. Now, these are the factory wheels, and they have been kept in magnificent condition despite the 85,000 miles put on this car. And of course, it looks brilliant against the green paint. Lastly, as I kind of mentioned, this car does receive performance suspension from the factory, so it's obviously much lower slung than a typical SUV, and I think that works in its favor brilliantly. One other thing you might notice, of course, is all of the extra slant. Now, in the back, you'll notice that the hatch is very, very slanted, and of course that the front end is perhaps a bit more slanted than your typical SUV, and that is, of course, for aerodynamics, because in the 1990s, this was one of the most aerodynamic SUVs, if not the most aerodynamic SUV. While I let that sink in, let's talk a little bit more about the interior in the next clip. When I mentioned at the beginning of the video that this car is in truly fantastic condition, I was talking just as much about the interior as I was the exterior. I'm sitting inside one of the most pristine interiors I've ever sat in, and it's a 30-year-old interior, which is truly mind-blowing. Now, if you're not familiar with the interior of these cars, they're obviously very limited in terms of modern amenities. That is, of course, because this is a 30-year-old car. But what you may be surprised by is what is available. So, I'm going to slide in just a little bit. This car comes with electric windows, which is, of course, very, very rare for the time. It also comes with a full cassette tape player with a radio, and, of course, a lot of very whimsical dials. Now, this is obviously a very stereotypical GMC styled interior, but it looks very, very nice. And of course, there have been a couple of things installed to make it even better. It has a kicker audio system in it that produces some very, very nice noises when you turn up the volume. And I truly love these awesome cloth and leather Typhoon sport seats. Now, they're very, very comfortable to be in, and they're actually very, very plush, despite the fact that they've had 30 years of use. Now, a couple of other amenities in this car are, of course, the leather steering wheel, the very interesting AC controls, which is still fully functional, by the way. It's very, very nice. And of course, one thing you may notice about this SUV is it's not exactly very utilitarian, which is sad because it's kind of in the name. Now, I say that partially jokingly, but it is true that this car only has 2 doors despite the extra row of seats. So if you'd like to carry more than one passenger, you do actually have to pull one of the seats forward to let people in the back. Now, that said, the back seat of this truck is very, very spacious, and there's more than enough room for 2 to 3 of your 6-foot-tall friends like I have. Now, of course, this car also offers some fantastic rear storage, which is crucial when you own an SUV, regardless of what it's designed to do. Now, this has plenty of spare storage space, which is perfect, especially given that most SUVs of the time with any kind of performance modifications or performance enhancements, especially now, tend to lack a little bit of the basic necessities like storage that make them sport utility vehicles. This, however, is a very, very strong exception to that rule, and it offers just about everything you'd expect in a modern SUV. And it's 30 years old, which is just incredible to me. Truly, I love this interior, and though it is lacking in the modern amenities that you may expect, like a rear camera, navigation, all of the things that you'd see in an SUV that's very, very new, it offers a lot of other cool things in return that make you truly feel like you're in a classic timepiece. That said, let's talk about what's under the hood, because that is, of course, where most of the surprises in this car lay. There is no question that this is a performance machine at heart, but what most people aren't aware of is exactly how much of a performance machine it truly is, which is where I come in. Under the hood is a 4.3-liter turbocharged V6 engine that produces 280 horsepower and 360 pound-feet of torque. Now, even by today's standards, that is a lot of power under the hood of an SUV. But in the 1990s, that was basically unheard of. This thing is a truly huge revolutionary piece of technology from that time period. And as a result of these awesome numbers being produced by this engine, this car is capable of a 5.3 second 0 to 60 time and is capable of doing the quarter mile in 14.1 seconds. Also, very, very impressive for an SUV, even more so in the 1990s. Now, to accomplish this fantastic drag strip time, it needs something special, and that is, of course, all-wheel drive. Now, as a result of the all-wheel drive and the performance suspension, this car not only launches very, very quickly, but it handles fantastically well. Now, if you're familiar with the general Chevy Blazer and the GMC equivalent of that at the time and a little bit after, these were very, very common in rollover accidents. But this has been significantly lowered, lowering the center of gravity by a significant amount. So as a result, it handles beautifully, and you, of course, have a much smaller concern of rollovers. Now, despite the fact that it's a V6, I think it produces a truly incredible noise. So I, of course, will start it up for you later in the video. But I just truly want you to take a moment to admire how fantastic of an engine this is. And like I said, it only has 85,000 miles on it, meaning that it is a low mileage engine in factory condition. So it is truly a very, very rare car indeed. Now, obviously, I can't speak for all GMC enthusiasts, but I would say that this car is very, very much a desirable machine to own by any standard, and I highly, highly urge you to come check it out. Now, let's do a couple more things to wrap up the video, and then we'll start it up just for you guys. I felt that I would be obligated to end the video back here, and that is because I really wanted to emphasize just how sloped this back end is. Now, like I said, this was, of course, for aerodynamic purposes, because any other purpose would just be cheating people out of very, very valuable rear storage space. But as I said, the 1990s were a very, very interesting time for general aerodynamics, so this was by all means a truly revolutionary design. Now, specific to this car, like I said, it has 85,000 miles, which is very, very low for any car pre-2000, but is even more so on a performance-oriented machine such as this one. As a result of these very, very fantastic condition and, of course, the low miles, this car is priced at $19,991, which is a steal given the collector's value of this car and, of course, its fantastic condition inside, outside, and, of course, in the engine bay. Now, I obviously can't make you buy this, but I highly, highly urge you to at least come check it out, because it is truly a very, very rare experience to even be able to see one of these, much less get behind the wheel of it. And I truly consider today to be a very, very special day because I've been able to get behind the wheel of this and drive it just a little bit. Now, obviously, I hope you guys enjoyed this video very, very much, and I hope that you will consider liking it, sharing it, and perhaps even subscribing to the channel. That would mean so very much to both me and the rest of the team at RPM. I also want you guys to know that we do have merch coming very, very soon, and I know I promised that last week, and I'm promising it again this week as well. We are getting that process very much sorted out, and we will have that to you guys as soon as possible. In the meantime, check out our Instagram, our TikTok, and our Facebook page. Those are all linked below. And as always, I'll catch you guys in the next one.